It's not uncommon for a manufacturer to periodically refresh its product lineup. In our next segment, we'll hear how a renowned 115-year-old German piano maker designed a new super line of instruments, literally from scratch. Rob Slayman, the Schimmel Vice President of North America, explained how the corporate do-over came to be. Here's Rob.
Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
You bet. Rob, tell me a little bit about the advent of the product and how Schimmel got its start with manufacturing pianos.
Well, in 1885, so now about 130 years ago, the first Mr. Schimmel, that would be Wilhelm Schimmel, started a small piano factory, and from the very beginning, his mantra, if you will, was quality will prevail. And so it was always his goal to build the best piano that he knew how to build. He ran the company. His son took over in around 1927. And then suddenly in 1961, his son, whose name was Wilhelm Arno Schimmel, passed away. And his son, or the grandson of the founder, Nicholas Schimmel, at a young age, took over. He was still in his 20s when he took over the management of the company. So that's the history of Schimmel. They ran that way until about 2004, and Nicholas retired from full-time management, and his son-in-law, Hannes Schimmelvogel, took over the management of the company.
Now, Rob, what I've read of late, the piano manufacturing process had pretty much stayed similar in the way things were done until recently. Some rather revolutionary things happened at your company. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Schimmel had been building pianos for a long time, and back in the 60s, they were a pretty popular piano, and they were considered a good, solid German piano. But they started embarking shortly after that on how can we be even better. And there was a guy, his name was Albert Hotterman, at the Schimmel factory in Germany. About 30 years ago, he was putting piano specifications and design ideas in his Commodore computer, which, if you know that name, you know that was kind of a limited and slow computer. But at the time, computer-aided design was just being adopted in the aerospace industry, and Mr. Nicholas Schimmel saw the potential there, and he funded a project based on this, which over the years became very sophisticated and became known as the CAPE system that Schimmel developed. And CAPE stands for Computer-Assisted Piano Engineering. And that gave Schimmel the tools they needed to build a new super line of pianos starting in 2001. Now, this CAPE system has several modules. It has one module that just designs cabinets. It has another one that designs strings and the back of the piano, we call the stringing scale of the recipe of the piano. And it has about 6 different modules. One of the modules controls factory equipment right from the design and engineering office. So it's a very sophisticated and really interesting program that has allowed Schimmel to ultimately come up with new piano designs. And instead of building 50 to 100 real physical prototypes, they can do all of that on the computer now. So the first physical piano they build of a new design is very close to the finished product. And I don't know, in my experience, but I don't know how much you know about piano building, but many of the piano factories are still building things that they built 100 years ago or decades ago. And there's not really a design and engineering office. Schimmel has always maintained striving to be a better piano. So in 2001, they started from the ground up, and I asked Mr. Schimmel at that time, why we have a successful line of pianos, why start all over again and design the grand pianos from scratch? And he said, well, we've gone as far as we know how to go, but we think with the knowledge we have now and with this sophistication, we could start all over and build something even better. And that started with the K169, which is a 5'7" grand. And by the way, the model numbers on Schimmel are in centimeters. So 169 centimeters, the model is 169, is roughly 5'7" piano. you can do a conversion there and turn it into feet and inches. So over the next several years after 2001, all the grand pianos in the Schimmel line were redesigned. And a few years ago, they came out also with their first 9'2" concert grand. So this has been a decade of a lot of exciting things happening at Schimmel.
Rob, prior to hearing about the piano company going that direction, had you ever heard of a piano company doing something like this?
No, I really hadn't. In my experience, most piano companies, when they came out with something new, it was a new design in the cabinet and styles and that sort of thing. I'm not saying that other companies don't come out with new sizes and new designs, but starting from scratch, I hadn't really heard of that. And when this started in 2001, I'd only been with Schimmel a couple of years, but it was really an exciting concept to work for a company that was striving to make their pianos better and better, and talk to a lot of artists and technicians and pianists and professors and ask them, what do you want to see? What do you want to feel? What do you want to hear when you play a piano? And this is where they gathered a lot of their knowledge over many years.
So in the aftermath, after the changes in manufacturing, Rob, what would you say some of the main visible or tangible differences there are to sound and appearance?
Well, the appearance of the pianos changed, and we're talking about the grand pianos because that's what was redesigned first. They made the piano, the tail end of the piano, the part farthest away from the pianist at the keyboard, wider, so that the piano, instead of the sides going straight back, and you may not really be aware of this unless you were looking down on it from above, but the sides actually angle outward a little bit. And what that did was made the soundboard on the piano, or gave them the ability to make the soundboard larger. So now the soundboard on a smaller grand piano is closer to the size of the next size larger. So the smaller instruments in the Schimmel line became more powerful and sounded like bigger pianos after this change.
Rob, as you approach the sale of the piano and the management as Director of Sales and Vice President for Schimmel for North America, tell us a little bit about your background and your passion and how those changes that you've just described really impact the consumer.
Well, my background is that at a very young age, my parents gave me a very small chord organ. I guess it would be kind of like an accordion, but on a tabletop, and you could play simple melodies and push a chord button and hear background. And from that time on, I really had an interest in piano. My parents weren't in a position to actually buy me a piano, so when I was about 19 years old, I guess, I saved up a little bit of money and I bought a used instrument and started learning how to play, just plunking along on my own. And I didn't get too far playing the right way until I realized that I needed some professional instruction. So I went to a neighborhood teacher. She gave me some lessons. She recommended I go interview with the symphony pianist, and which I did. And she said I should really go to college, go to the local university here, Butler University, and talk to a professor, see if they would give me lessons and prepare me to enter college. So a couple of years out of high school, I actually started playing piano. I went back after a 2-year break from studying. I went into music, and I auditioned and got into Butler University and became a piano. I was actually a theory and composition major with piano as my main instrument. So even though I auditioned with simple pieces, because when I started at Butler, they started me all over again to teach me how to properly hold my fingers. They had let me in because I made such fast progress. So the wonderful thing about the convergence of my playing experience with Schimmel's journey to becoming a world-class piano is that I take great joy in people realizing their own dreams of playing a piano and owning a really fine instrument. And sometimes people will say, well, I don't really play good enough to play on a fine instrument. But if you think about, you drive a car, your driving ability doesn't dictate how nice of a car you like to drive, because when you drive a nicer car, you feel more comfortable, you feel more safe. The same thing is somewhat true on piano, because if you're playing a better instrument like a Schimmel, you not only sound better, but the sound is more pleasing to your ear. You have more expressive capability. It feels more comfortable. It's in a way easier to play because it's very responsive. So for me, piano is not just a commodity; it's a catalyst to so many other things, and it's a lifelong companion and an expressive and an emotional outlet for many people, including myself.
Rob, how do you feed that love of piano playing and being around others that love it today? We know how that looks in the corporate and the sales setting for managing a world-class product in North America. Tell us just a little bit, if you would, about life outside of Schimmel.
Well, the piano industry, if I'll start there, there's this circle of people that are important to the entire pursuit of music. And the manufacturer has to build the instruments. Then we have to have teachers that teach. Without them, we go nowhere. And then we have to have salespeople to sell pianos, and then back to the manufacturer. It's this circle effect. So there's education, there's sales, there's production of the instrument. And every one of those is very, very important. I've ended up in the sales and marketing end of the cycle, but I've always kept close touch with my musical side because I enjoy that so much. In fact, I even direct a choir and occasionally an orchestra now in my on weekends when I have a chance. So I do keep involved. Schimmel is involved mostly by building the best piano they know how to build, so that Mr. Schimmel once told me, this is Nicholas, he said, I'm not really a very good piano salesperson, but I want to build a piano that sells itself. Well, that's, as a salesperson, we know that's not ever totally possible, but he's come closer than anyone that I know, because when you play a Schimmel, you feel the action, you feel how well it responds. You just fall in love with that kind of an instrument, and it makes you want to play, and it makes you want to do more music.
Rob, thanks for taking a couple of minutes out of your busy schedule and your travels to talk to us about a product that's pretty exciting and dynamic, and one that we look forward to keeping out in front.
If I could just add something, when Hannes Schimmelvogel came into the company and took over the reins around 2004, he started an ambitious project of making Schimmel more accessible. Before, we were just building the best piano we knew how to build. It was one line of pianos, and he gradually expanded the line to include the highest concert level instrument, and then a different price category for a professional player, and then a different price category below that. So we now actually have 4 different lines. They're all Schimmel-made pianos, but we span a greater part of the market, and I have to thank Hannes for doing that.
Rob, go ahead and repeat those 4 levels, if you would, those 4 lines.
That would be the Schimmel concert line, and we say concert with a K. It's the German spelling, and they say Konzert. That's aimed at the concert level, the highest level player. Then the Schimmel Classic line are models that we've had in the line previously, and those are geared also toward very good players, professional players. The Schimmel International line is also built in our factory in Germany, the same factory, and you might call it the entry into a German quality piano. And then we have the Wilhelm Schimmel line that is made in our factory in Kalisz. Kalisz is the oldest city in Poland, so we have that alternative for more of a beginning player or a person who has been playing but they want to upgrade to a little better instrument, maybe had a used instrument before or some other type of instrument. So those are the 4 lines, and these really only came into being in early 2013 when the Schimmel line was reimagined again to make the top line, the concert line, concert with a K, not to be confused with the concert with a C, which is just one piano, basically the 9'2" concert grand. But this full line of concert grands, we call the concert line. It consists of 6 pianos. And what Schimmel did in 2013 was, again, something unique and something I've never heard of. They changed the pianos to accommodate the 9'2" concert action. So the full action and the key length that you find in the concert grand. Now, formally, and everyone else I know builds different size key lengths as the pianos go up in size, the keys get longer. So now with the Schimmel line, if you're a beginning player or a student, or you're playing on a small 5'9" Schimmel in the concert series, you're having the exact same engine, so to speak, the feel the concert piano. And I know when I was in college, I had to play at a recital early in my first year. It was an honors recital, and I was very nervous because I had only started playing, a year or two before. And I played on a Bosendorfer Imperial Grand, and I got out there, and the extra keys threw me, and it sounded so different. It felt so different. I was just so thrown off that I left out the entire development section of my Brahms Rhapsody I was playing. So I think the neat thing about Schimmel is you can play on a smaller Grand, and now you can get the same feeling and already be used to what you're going to play if you're going to walk on stage and play on a concert 9'2" Schimmel. They changed the feel of the piano a little bit to make it feel like it has more depth. It was so responsive and so fast that some of the artists said we'd like to feel it a little more because it's responding even quicker than we're accustomed to. And then they started a new department in the factory. It's called Tonmeisterei. And this room now, all the concert pianos have to go through this room before they're finished. And the master voicers will voice the piano to be exceptionally powerful, have a bigger range of dynamics, and be more powerful than ever before.
Rob, thank you so much for your time this afternoon to talk to us about the piano. We look forward to talking with you again with release of new products and opportunities.
Well, thank you very much, and it was my pleasure.